What is up guys, Andy Forrestin Runner here, and today we're talking all about the New Balance 1080 version 10 after 100 miles. Today's run meant we tipped over the 100 mile mark point with the New Balance 1080 version 10, 105 miles to be precise. Today I'm going to be giving you guys an update on how this shoe has been faring across all the runs, how it's holding up in terms of performance, and if I'm going to be carrying on using it in the future. So if you're excited for today's video guys, make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and without further ado, let's dive in. So before we get into the general wear and tear and how this thing is actually holding up, let me tell you the type of runs we've been doing in the New Balance 1080 version 10, how I've been using it, and then that might give you a better idea as to why it's wearing the way it is wearing. So this shoe for me, since I did all the speed test, the long run test in the very beginning, has been pretty much reserved for what I would call those middle distant runs, anywhere between 5 miles all the way up to sort of 12, 13 miles. Nothing really much longer, nothing really much shorter. For me, it's been a great easy day shoe, bopping along the trails type of shoe. As you guys know, in the beginning of the year, as I've said in multiple videos, I was on the hunt for a couple of easier day shoes and a couple of speedier shoes to make up the new rotation for 2020, and this of course fell into that daily trainer easy type of shoe. In the beginning, I was very impressed with how this thing performed in the speed test, despite its weight in my UK size 13, which was over 12 ounces, I think 340 something grams off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly. So it's a pretty weighty shoe in my size, but it did really well, and that kind of set me up with a really positive mindset with this thing, because I knew it was just going to do well. I had such a negative ending with the Beacon version 2, and of course a bit hesitant with to what the Fresh Foam X was going to be like in this shoe, with of course in the Beacon the Fresh Foam being a little bit too hard for my liking. I was concerned I wasn't going to like it, but those fears were quickly put to bed, because this shoe has been an absolute workhorse over the last couple of months since I've had it. So with that said, I've been predominantly running on the buffed out flat trails. I've done a few tarmac concrete runs in this thing, but mostly my shoes get used out on the trail. So in terms of wear and tear, I think you'll be quite surprised at how little wear and tear there is on that, and I'm going to assume that's going to be predominantly down to the fact that we're running on those softer trails. The tarmac isn't scuffing up the bottom of the shoes so much. Yes, there's a few little dinks in the bottom from where we've gone over some rocks and some pebbles, but on the whole, it's looking really good. As far as the upper goes, it's in pristine condition, bar a bit of mud and scuffs here and there. As you can see, there's just nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with the upper material here, which is great because, and I'll tell you for why, and the heel counter as sturdy as ever. And the reason I am really pleased with that is because when I put this shoe on, I was so in love with the upper, the stretchiness. It just wrapped and hugged my foot so well, and I just had this horrible feeling that, like anything, is that stretchiness going to fade over time? Is it just going to lose its elasticity, and is it just going to become a little bit saggy in the toe box? And it just hasn't. It has just hugged my foot from mile 1 to mile 105, and quite frankly, I'm pretty confident it's going to keep hugging my foot until the day I stop running in this shoe. So in terms of the upper, the lacing, the heel counter, everything, it's just doing fantastic. Let's talk about the outsole. The Fresh Foam X is holding up really well. It's as good as it was in the beginning. I'm seeing no deterioration in performance in terms of it getting harder or softer or any difference. It is absolutely perfect. And where I'm seeing the most wear and tear, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this very well, But predominantly I'm seeing a lot of wear in the forefoot area, forefoot to midfoot area around here, and especially on the top of the toes. These few lugs here have now completely worn flat, which is good for me because that means I am striking midfoot and rolling through to the heel, which is great. I'm striking through and rolling through to the forefoot, which is great. There are a few lugs around the back here which are a little bit worn down. That's predominantly when I'm flying downhill and I get a bit lazy and I start to heel strike, I lean back. It's just a habit I have doing. But on the whole, it's the wear is happening where I would expect it to happen. But to be perfectly honest with you, there's not a massive amount of wear there. It really is super minimal. So on the whole, I think this shoe could potentially go on for a good 300, 400, 500 miles. So I guess one of the big questions is now, how am I going to be using this thing moving forward, and am I going to be using it moving forward? Well, the big answer to that is going to be yes, 100%. Of course, there are so many incredible shoes coming out that I just want to get my hands on. There are so many bargains right now with a pre-summer sale because all the new models are coming out and I just want to go and grab every single pair of shoes out there. And as a running shoe tester, which I now kind of am doing quite a little bit more of, I am finding that I'm not able to get the mileage in the shoes that I would like to and really take them as far. In fact, the most miles I've put in a shoe of late is 250, and that was in the Pegasus Turbo when that really and sadly died a death. So to get 200 miles out of the shoe for me is going to be quite an achievement. I like to try as a minimum to get to 150. I know a lot of you are going to be like, oh my goodness, that's not value for money, and I understand that. That's just coming with the territory of trying to try as many shoes as I could, but I'm confident that if I did run in this shoe more, then 100% I would get it well into the 300s, 400s. This thing is built to last. So the answer to the question is yes. I'm going to now push the Nova Blast to 100 miles, see how that thing fares, and then I'm going to be alternating between the two shoes. Going to try and get each of them to 200 miles, but as I said, summer's coming, some incredible releases are coming very soon. So I'm going to do my best to ramp up as many miles as I can in this thing, in the Nova Blast, and take them as far as I can. So I won't keep you too much longer, but one thing I do want to add on to the end of these after 100 mile reviews is, would I recommend this shoe to somebody? Now I've run with it, have my opinions changed from the first impression speed test, long run test? Now I've got a fair few more miles in, as I said. Would I recommend it to you or whoever it might be? Well, what I'm going to say to that is my opinions haven't changed. This shoe has got better as I've run with it. I think the midsole really started to bed in after the long run test. After around 30-40 miles, it really started to come into its own. And as I said, it's been a pleasure to run in, and I'm really happy with how this thing has performed for me. Would it be suitable for you? Well, if you want something firm and responsive, and it is quite responsive, it has got a bit of a pop and a snap, which I'm really happy with. There was a point in the beginning where I was going on my runs and I did feel towards the end of the runs that my feet were sinking in actually to the midsole, almost like a little bit sloppy. Then I was thinking to myself, oh gosh, I hope this doesn't carry on, but I literally felt that twice, and as things progressed, it's like the midsole warmed up, it heated up, and it just became absolute fire. I love Fresh Foam X, and I'm saying it now, I cannot wait for the Beacon version 3. It's going to be a stripped back, lightweight version of this thing, and yes, I will be grabbing that shoe when it comes out. But back to the 1080 version 10, would I recommend it? 100%. What would I recommend it for? Well, exactly what I've been using it for. It's those easier day runs. For me, it's not something I would put speed into. For you guys, if you have a smaller shoe size, it might be a heck of a lot more lightweight. I know shoes, when they get up to a size 13, become very heavy and very clunky. And for me, it's sad because a lot of you guys that run in these nice lightweight shoes, by the time the shoe gets to my size, it's not lightweight in the slightest. But for you guys it might be, but on the whole, this thing has been an absolute pleasure to soak up the miles in, just to get out there and enjoy and forget that you've got anything on your feet and just run and cruise. And that's what I recommend it. If you're in the market for that type of shoe, then don't look any further. I've had some really positive comments on the videos that I've done about this shoe. A lot of you guys like it out there. A few of you don't. That's fine. We're all different, but a lot of you guys do. So yeah, 100% I'd recommend it. So that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the series of me reviewing the 1080 version 10, doing the initial impression, speed test, long run test, and of course now the after 100 miles. And I'd love to know in the comments below if you guys have run in this shoe, what your thoughts are. Did it take a bit of time to bed in? How is it performing for you, and what runs do you use it on? And ultimately, my big question is, has anyone out there taken this thing beyond 200, 300, 400 miles? And if so, how is it holding up? Because you're going to help a lot of people by answering that question in the comments below. That would be absolutely fantastic. And just as a side note, as I said and alluded to back earlier in the review, I am super excited for so many of these shoe releases. It's going to be great to get my hands on the Beacon version 3 when it comes out, and it's going to be great to compare it to this thing, because I think if this thing is anything to go by with the Fresh Foam X, the Beacon is going to be absolutely crazy. The version 2 was just not a shoe, sadly, that I got on with very well, but I've got to say, this thing is fantastic, and let's keep our fingers crossed the Beacon 3 is just as good. Anyway, distracted. That's it for today's video, guys. Make sure you give it a like, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel for weekly running content, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Until then.